Welcome to the Daily Review. This is Razak, Senior Trading Strategist here at CMTrading, and today is February 3rd, 2025, and today is Monday morning. So looking at the highlights of the day, markets tumble after Trump makes these tariff announcements versus Canada, China, and some other countries. But first, looking at today's major economic events. So at 5 p.m. South African time from the United States, we have an ISM manufacturing PMI number coming out. Now, looking at the markets, they got rattled across the board. Starting out with the Forex symbols, we saw the major pairs have a huge gap down versus the dollar. And looking at the indices, that was no different. Both the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ both gapped down big. Now, looking at commodities, they went the other way. Natural gas and crude oil actually shooting up and gapping up. Now, looking at the stocks last week, Nvidia sold off quite sharply. And lastly, Bitcoin was no different. It was also tumbling further down to 94K. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. Something tells me we're going to be in for a very long 4 years. There's going to be a lot of volatility in the markets just because just one announcement. One person makes one announcement, the whole world goes crazy. Yes, he's the president of the free world, of one of the strongest countries in the world, but this has really crazy ramifications for it, right? So we're looking at the Euro USD, and you can see from 103.70-ish level to 102.30-ish level, we have this massive gap down, okay? And if we look at a daily chart, we're back on our lows here. This may be a test of our double low here at 102.29, so keep an eye on this because it may bounce off of these levels. If we look at the GBP USD, did retreat lower as well, did gap down, but not as big, so maybe it's a little bit stronger here. As we look at the Canadian dollar, the opposite effect, because the quoted currency first is the USD versus the CAD as opposed to euro to the dollar. Okay, so keep that in mind. And we gapped up here this morning at 147. So this is super important because we haven't been at these type of levels in a very long time, and we're gapping up above, okay, our previous highs, which was back in 2020 and even before that in 2015. And this leads us back to the 2002-ish level, okay, where we could retrace all the way to 160 if we get that far, okay? This is major stuff. Now remember, a tariff war is one step before physical war, okay? Just, you know, if history has taught us anything, it's taught us that. So keeping that in mind. Now looking at the commodities, crude oil has a huge gap up also to $74. Okay, that could definitely make itself back. Natural gas, not as big, but did get a gap up this morning. Now looking at gold, we sold off quite aggressively off of our highs of 28.16 after hitting new all-time record highs. We're now at 27.87 above our previous resistance-ish area. So I do expect us to rally back at some point to our all-time record highs. Now looking at the U.S. markets, check this out. Dow Jones, we were trading at 45,000. We're trading now at 43,000. Unbelievable, close to 2,000 points in just 2 days of trading. It did make, on a technical, it did make a double top, all right? So for all intents and purposes, that was called for, okay, as the markets were getting weaker. And looking at the NASDAQ, this got really hurt very bad. But again, it's on supportish level, so this may be a pivot point for us to bounce off of if these stocks are really going to rebound. Now, looking at the individual stocks, NVIDIA did sell off last week quite aggressively, I might add. If we look at that, it did get a gap down and then sold off as well. So this is still pretty weak versus the others. There wasn't much activity in the market. The market did sell off, but we didn't see massive sell-off. Amazon held itself high. Tesla had held somewhat, okay, above the $400 range, okay, even though it came out with warnings in terms of its production moving forward. So these are some of the things I'm going to be highlighting. JP Morgan also on its highs. So there wasn't like massive sell-off across the board. The markets did sell off. So let's see how the stocks actually are going to react to this. They're going to shrug it off, or is it going to actually produce a panic on the floor? Now, lastly, looking at Bitcoin, you can see that quite clearly. Look at that nosedive. Phew. That went down to 94. But again, we are at supportish level at this area. It's not like we haven't hit this area either. And as long as we don't break the supportish level, we can continue just, chugging along within this range. But if we do break off some of this supportish area, we could see massive sell-off as well, right? So looking at the VIX this morning, a little bit of a move upwards. If we look at that, you can see it quite clearly to 1728, but didn't move to like 1920. Okay, so with all intents and purposes, this is still all kind of being digested in the market. Now, that's where we stand today. Just be careful. There's going to be a lot of volatility. Market's going to actually kind of absorb this information, kind of process it. So be very, very selective on what you choose to trade today. This is Razak. I want to wish you guys a great trading day. Thank you.